Hi, I'm Rex Davidson with OEM Products. We're here today to talk about troubleshooting the propane system on a Kohler engine that we use on our Lightning and Hurricane floor scraper machines. First thing we're going to look at is we're going to try to start the engine, and we're going to look at this fuel pressure gauge and see if it registers any fuel pressure. Okay, so we're sitting in the seat. We've activated the seat switch. We're going to crank the engine over. And we're looking to see if the fuel pressure went up. It did not, so now we can troubleshoot why the fuel pressure did not come up. Okay, so theoretically we've turned the engine over. We're not getting any fuel pressure. So let's go to the first few things, the most common things. First of all, does the tank have any fuel in it? Let's assume that yes, when this one does. Is the tank on? Okay, tank is on. We crank it over, still doesn't have any fuel pressure at the gauge. We're going to check the quick coupler. A lot of times these quick couplers can feel like they've seated all the way, but they're not. So in order to make sure of that, we can lubricate this prong here on the end so that it slides into the rubber O-ring inside of the valve. Best way to do that when you're on a job site is just pull the dipstick out of the engine, get some oil off of the dipstick, put it on this part here in the center of the quick coupler, put our dipstick back in, and we can screw it back on. Should be a lot easier to put on now. All right, now let's just say that fixed the problem. We move on, we go to work. If it didn't fix the problem, now we can move over to the oil pressure sending unit. Okay, so let's use a scenario where we crank the engine over and the green light is not coming on. In this instance right here, when we crank it over, the green light is coming on. Okay, and we do have oil pressure. But if you crank it over and the green light does not come on, then you verify, do we have oil pressure? If you do not have oil pressure, check the engine and the oil and see if you're out of oil. If you do have oil pressure, but it's not enough to build up to the 6 or 8 pounds, and that means maybe your engine is extremely old and worn out and it's not able to build up to that pressure whenever the oil in the engine is hot. So these two indicators are going to let you know whether it's the oil pressure sending unit or it's the actual engine having a problem. Okay, so now we're going to come over here to the oil pressure sending unit, which is located on the back of the oil pressure gauge. And we're going to verify that if you're sitting in the seat and you turn the ignition switch on, this terminal should get 12 volts. It should be hot, and it is. So turn the key off, it goes off. Key on, it comes on. The other side is not, because we have to meet oil pressure in order for that other wire to become hot. So sitting in the seat, we're going to crank it over and we're going to see if that other side gets hot. Okay, the light coming on verifies that we do have oil pressure and the oil pressure sending unit is working properly. So that means that from here it's good. So let's move on to the next thing in the system, which is the electric solenoid. Okay, so now we are already proven that we do have the tank on. Tank has pressure in it. We've verified that the quick connector on the tank is connected properly, seated all the way. We've verified that the oil pressure sending unit is getting satisfied with enough oil pressure and is allowing 12 volts to come over to this side of the engine. Let's verify that this wire has not been cut somewhere between this side of the engine and that side. So let's sit in the seat and let's crank it over, and we're going to verify that this is going to be 12 volts. Okay, so that verifies we are getting 12 volts here. It is connected. The ground wire is connected on the solenoid, but the solenoid is not coming on. It's not giving us pressure, so that means that this actual solenoid valve is bad. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to inspect in this process of elimination here, again, we verify we do have 12 volts coming to this system, and but we don't have fuel pressure down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the tank off. We're going to release the pressure out of the hose on the end of the quick connect, and we're going to remove this pressure hose off of the solenoid so we can take this apart. There is a filter in this solenoid. Doesn't generally cause the pressure to go to zero, but it's something that we all need to be aware of. So we're going to take this apart here. You always need to use 2 wrenches on this. So we're going to take that loose there. And this is going to reveal a little small filter that's on all of these engines. And this one here is not clogged up, so that must not be the problem. Let's go to the next thing here. There is a small piston and spring in this solenoid that if this machine is left sitting still for a long time, condensation may rust this little piston. So this piston moves in and out in there, and if it's not easy to move in and out like this, then it could become lodged or stuck. So we just inspected that. That looks good, so let's put this back in and we'll go on to the next thing. Okay, so we have verified oil pressure sending unit is functioning properly given the correct oil pressure. It is putting 12 volts over to this side. It is also getting 12 volts to the solenoid. The solenoid obviously is not coming on because the fuel pressure is not going up. So that means we need to replace the solenoid. So you buy a new one through OEM, put it on, should be ready to go. If for some reason you do have fuel pressure and it still won't start, now we can go through and do some other troubleshooting. Okay, so while we're cranking the engine over, we do have fuel pressure and it's still not starting. So on these engines, we do need to choke them. So let's verify that whenever we do pull the choke out, that the mechanism on the engine is actually moving. And this one is. So if we pull the choke out, turn the engine over, and it will start.